now that we've covered the types of singing bowls that you might find out there, getting some intentions behind why you want to have a singing bowl practice, and the different types of strikers you might find to use with your singing bowls, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about getting them out of the box, getting them set up for the first time, and getting playing the singing bowls that you have. I want to preface this with a couple of things real quick. One is you really want to pay attention to the space considerations that your singing bowls are going to need. And you need to make sure that you know where you're going to set them up and where they're going to live within your space. The set that I have is, I believe, 12 inches to 8 or 6 inches. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look it up on the receipt or whatever. I went ahead and took my singing bowls when I had them upstairs last week and set them up from biggest to smallest, side by side, with about an inch in between each bowl, and it was about 6 feet long. I will go ahead and get a video inserted into this so you can see that. All right, I thought I would just give a little bit of a visual of the amount of space that setting up a set of singing bowls like I have in a row would take up. This is, on my tape measure here, it runs roughly 6 feet with just a little bit of space in between each one of them. So you might want to take that into consideration when you are looking to purchase a set of these. That space could be an issue. Now, that being said, you can have these set up in a lot of different, I guess, configurations. If you want to have them displayed like end to end, of course, you're going to, if you're going to want them set up end to end and displayed that way, and you have a set the size of mine, you're going to want to really take into consideration how much space that's going to be. If you're going to want to play them from where they sit, you're going to need probably at least 8 to 12 inches maybe between each bowl, so you can strike them good without them knocking into other bowls, and you can pick them up easy without knocking over other bowls. And then you're going to find yourself either reaching way out there to grab or to strike a bowl that's on this side, or way on the other side, or you're going to have to move. And if you have them on a table, you'll just be walking back and forth a whole bunch to strike the bowls. Now, the way I keep my bowls set up is I actually have them usually set up on my pool table. It's a 7-foot bar box, and it will take up roughly 3/4 of my pool table. Now, I could probably squish them down, but I keep them set up on the blanket that I use, and that blanket kind of is a point guide, and I'll show you that in a second, to how I set up my bowls. I'll go ahead and kind of raise this other camera here and cut into there so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. And you can watch a different video that I have of me playing my singing bowls with a multicam edit that will actually show how these are all kind of set up and how they look. Okay, the second thing I just wanted to cover real quick is needing a certification to play singing bowls. You do not need a certification to play these. You don't even have to pay money to get a certification. Certifications don't have some governing board that you can take your certification to prove that you can play singing bowls. They are participation trophies, essentially. Now, I'm not saying don't take a certification course if you feel compelled to take one. What I am saying is do your research on them. Make sure they're going to cover what you want them to cover when it comes to playing the bowls. Now, I get that the thing I'm doing here is a little bit more of a high-level overview of some of this stuff. You know, I will be more than happy to make other videos that expand on some of these topics that I'm covering in this video. If there's any specific video you want me to make, go ahead and leave a comment, and I will see what I can do to get that to happen. In the meantime, let's go ahead and just tackle some of these things. So, first things first is you want to inspect them once you get them out of the package. You want to make sure that they have, acceptable tolerances and they meet your expectations. When I say acceptable tolerances, like I was talking about in the types of singing bowls, is the hand-hammered bowls are going to have imperfections. That's just part of the deal. So you will get them out and you will look at them and they might look ugly. But as long as they're not cracked and they don't have any obvious signs of damage, or they're super misshapen, they are probably going to be fine. These ones, they probably just check for cracks, hit them once, make sure they sound good. The quartz bowls, the crystal bowls, you would want to, of course, open up, make sure there's no cracks or fractures in them, and make sure that they get, that they do play the way they're supposed to play. Now, speaking of playing the way they're supposed to be played, you can get a tuner app from your phone. I got Everywhere Tuner from the Android store, and you can use that to test and make sure that your bowls do sound appropriate to the tuning that they're supposed to be. Now, my set that I got said it was a full moon chakra tune set of singing bowls. I'm pretty sure that was just a lot of marketing, and it doesn't really matter. They showed up, you hit them, they make a noise. Do they sound pleasant? They do. Great. Let's start playing them. And that's kind of what I'm going to get into here. So when you get them set up, when you get them out of the box and you inspect them, then you need to get them kind of set up in an order that you think you can use for a little while. Now, if you only have 2 or 3 bowls, that's going to take up way less space than, say, a set of 7. And also, again, it depends on size. But just as an example, if I were to, say, use just these 3 bowls here, okay? Maybe set them up kind of like that, and sort of like a triangle, so you have enough room in all the directions to strike them. You have enough room to pick them up if you need to, and it's not going to impede or clash the sounds of the other bowls. So you do want to make sure you have them set up in a way that is comfortable for you. And I would say this setup is probably the way you want to set them up for a little while you're getting used to how they sound and how they play. My standard kind of setup is what you'll see right down here below. I use this blanket as a little bit of a guide to where I position my bowls. And as you can see, I'm using the center for the big large bowl. Then the next 2 larger bowls are up here. Then the next ones are here. And then the smaller ones are down here. And that is the setup that I'm working with and have been for quite a while. I have played with other setups depending on space, and I can go ahead and make a video covering different configurations for your bowls. But generally, the configurations are going to be something similar to this, or maybe like a horseshoe around you, or even maybe rows. So you could have the bigger ones up in the top row and the smaller ones in the bottom row. But again, you have to consider how much you're reaching over. And are you going to want to reach over a set of bowls to strike another set of bowls? And how comfortable is that going to be for you? The other thing you might want to take into consideration is how long can you sit still? If you're going to play these off of the floor, you need to be pretty okay with sitting on the floor or on a cushion for a long amount of time without your back or your hips or anything like that locking up. I'm in my 40s, so I can probably sit down comfortably for about 45 minutes, I think, is about my max before my leg kind of locks, my knees start to hurt. It's old people problems, but that is something to consider as well. Now, once you have them set up, what you would want to do is you want to take each of your strikers that you have with your bowls, and you want to play your bowls. You want to hit each bowl. Hit each bowl, give it about, it doesn't matter how long, you can hit each bowl and just wait for it to ring out as long as it takes for them to finish ringing out. You can hit each bowl and let it go for like 15 seconds, and then you can either stop it by touching it with your hand, or you can just hit the next bowl and see what happens. So that is all there is. That's really it. you just start with that. You have to learn your instrument, and you have to learn your bowls, and the way to do that is you have to play them. No certification or anything is going to make you instantly able to play these bowls without the practice and the intentions behind playing the bowls. So start with whichever striking. Start with whichever striking tool you want, and just go and hit your bowls. Now, this is not quite how to play your bowls. This is learning the way your bowls interact and learning the way you interact with your bowls. Okay, so what I'm talking about now is not necessarily how to play the singing bowls. What this is learning. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about now is not necessarily how to play the singing bowls, but it's how to, I guess, learn how the singing bowls play. I know that sounds kind of funny, but you have to know your instrument, right? And the only way you can know your instrument is by practicing. And you don't necessarily have to jump in this thinking you're going to play like whatever, Beethoven Symphony number 5 2 days after you get these bowls. You know, you're not going to be able to necessarily jump right in and get all the bowls to be brought up in the same resonance and sing as some other people who have had more practice and more experience have been able to do. So you want to start with baby steps, and you want to build on those steps. The first thing I would say to do is take your strikers and hit each bowl in turn and see what they sound like. You're learning your bowls, and you're learning how the bowls sound, and you're learning how you interact with the bowls, how the bowls interact with each other, and by extension, the rest of the world. So it's really good to take the time, take each striker, hit each bowl in turn, learn how they sound. Maybe start with 2 bowls, hit 2 of those in turn. If you don't need a set of 7 bowls to play singing bowls. I think I've mentioned this a couple different times. You can do it with 2 bowls. You can do it with 1 bowl. You can do it with a quartz bowl and a hand-hammered bowl. The sky's the limit, really. It's basically what you want to put into it, which is really the key takeaway to all of this. But there's and if you want some good reference material for how you can play and have a good singing bowl meditation or sound bath with just 1 or 2 bowls, I would suggest you check out the Temple Sounds YouTube channel. He has a lot of good videos where he's doing 2 singing bowls for a meditation, or 1 singing bowl, or a whole bunch of singing bowls. But it will give you a pretty good reference point on knowing that you don't need a huge elaborate setup to make a experience profound for somebody you're playing for. That being said, you still want to learn your bowls. You still want to practice. You want to start simple. Start with just 2 bowls at one time. Let 1 bowl ring out, hit the other. You can try different. Once you go through and get the sounds and get an idea of how all the bowls sound separately, you can start trying to combine and see how they sound together. You can do that a couple different ways. You can try 2 different types of strikers. So, for instance, you could take the wand and strike one of them, and then you could take the mallet and strike a different one. And I can demonstrate that real quick here. I will use this wand and this striker. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna stop these. All right, now that was the wand on this one and the striker on this one. Now I'm just going to reverse it so you can hear the difference. So wand here. Actually, hold on. A quick note on how to actually strike these. That's probably an important thing to do. So, real quick, how you actually are supposed to strike these is you want to make sure that you're hitting them on the top third of the bowl. That is where you're going to get the most sound and the most resonance. You're going to want to hit resonance. You're going to want to hit them on the top third of the bowl. That's your aiming point. It doesn't matter if it's with this or with whatever striker. It's the top third of the bowl is where you want to make sure you're striking. So do keep that in mind when you are playing these. You want to ensure that you are striking them at about the top third of the bowl. So first, practice with the striking of the bowls. You don't have to strike them hard. It doesn't take a lot to make them sound. You can play with the amount of force you hit the bowls with, because they will also have different resonances. As evidenced by that, if I take this and just gently tap it, a little more high pitched, a little softer. It doesn't have quite the resonance to it. It's a little more sharp, but soft. Now, I'm not sure if that really sounded good together. I don't think that I personally don't know if the harder strike on the A bowl with the softer mallet strike on this G bowl sounded good together. But this is another thing you need to practice and figure out. Now, if you've had like musical theory and things like that, you might have a better idea of how different notes sound and scale together, and more power to you. I'm going to venture to guess that if you are asking questions about how to play the singing bowls, you probably don't have a whole lot of musical theory behind your belt, and you just want to know how to play them. And that's what I'm trying to accomplish with this. So we covered the striking, how to test them, how to see the sounds, how to have them interact with each other. So let's go ahead and cover the, I guess I'm not sure what you'd want to call it. I call it, I don't know, I guess running it. I call it running the singing bowl. It just sounds right to me. And to run the singing bowl, what you do is you take the inviter and the bowl. Actually, wait, hold on. Let's talk about how you hold the singing bowl first. That would be pretty important. Okay, hold the singing bowl. Take your hand. Reach out like you're going to get a high five from somebody. Make your hand flat. Take your singing bowl. Set it on your palm. Singing bowl on your palm. You want to keep your fingers. You don't necessarily need to force your fingers to be like hyperextended or like outstretched a whole bunch. Like you don't need to do this, but you also don't need to do this and hold the bowl, because that will affect the way the bowl sounds. You want to just have a nice, soft, kind of natural hold. If you are, above a bed or a pillow or something soft, you could also get it on practice holding it on your hand. You could also hold it, and before striking it or anything, you can just kind of move it a little bit to make sure that it has a good solid plant on your palm. You do want it as centered in your palm as possible. Maybe practice doing this up and down, left and right a little bit. just to make sure you have a good solid hold on it. Now, if you're going to strike the bull while you're holding it, you want to make sure that you're striking it right along this top third of the bowl. You don't want to hit it too hard, and especially if you're just learning this and trying to figure it out, you probably want to maybe sit on your bed or have it be over a pillow while you're learning the way to strike it, because if you come in too hard and you think you're going to get a good smack and you whiff it, it could be bad. You could end up tipping this because you think you're trying to encounter the force and counter force it, so you could tip it and it could fall. So definitely, if you're going to hold these and practice over a soft surface, and don't hold them very high up. Keep them about 8 inches above that soft surface until you get really good at how you hold them. Another thing that you might want to consider is practice holding them with both hands. You don't necessarily need to do that, but there might become a time where you might need to actually pick one up or make sure one's being held in your non-dominant hand. So you may want to just put a little bit of practice into holding the bull with your non-dominant hand, working on striking it, but only do the strikes with your non-dominant hand when you are comfortable with those strikes. Doing it during performance, it's not the time to try a new strike with your non-dominant hand. Get it solid first at home while you're practicing before you incorporate it into your practice and sound baths with other people. Okay? Got it? Good. Now, once you get a good solid idea of how the bull sits and holds in your hand, you can start learning how to make the bull sing with the inviter. To do that, you take the inviter and you want to hold it somehow kind of like a pencil, maybe, or a paintbrush. Okay? Pencil, paintbrush hold. You can maybe do something like this, but really you want to make sure that you have it in a way that you can stroke, like brush, right? Wax on, wax off kind of thing. Think a little bit like that. Then what you do is you place the inviter at about a 45-degree angle on the edge. You place the inviter at a 45-degree angle, roughly, on the edge of the singing bowl. Once you have that done, you want to make sure that as you place it, okay, the top of the inviter is about at the center of the singing bowl. Again, once you have it placed, you want to make sure that the top of the inviter is over the center of the singing bowl. Okay? Once you have that down, you want to put pressure, so it's kind of a down and an in. So it's sort of a pressure that is in and downward. So you want to have this be pushed down into the center of the bowl, and you want to have this pushed into the bowl. It's a little hard to explain, but I'll try to do this on this other camera here. So you want to have it tipped. You want the top of this to be over the center of that bowl. Okay? And you want to put some pressure onto the bowl. And you want to push down and in. So down and in. Then you want to run the inviter around the bowl. And this will take some practice. And I don't know if you heard that little chitter, but that is because I wasn't pushing. You'll get that. And what that is the bowl is vibrating more than you can push the inviter into the bowl to keep it from doing that. So it's losing its stability when you hear that. Let me see. Here you go. That. That little chitter can happen if you're making the bowl vibrate faster than if you're making the bowl vibrate more than the force you can apply to the side to keep it stable. Now, what you can do to get the singing bowl to start to sing that way is you can strike it first, just a little bit. And once you get it to make the noise after you strike it, you can then catch the edge with the inviter and then run it around the circle. Now, if you've noticed, when I'm doing this, it's a little bit hard to show on this lower camera, but if you look at this camera here, I am making big circles with my entire arm. Way around. Big circles. You want to make sure you're doing that as well. It's not little tiny circles. You want big strokes. All right? Okay, I think that covered everything. I thought there was something in my brain I was going to mention with that too. Oh, right. Okay, so when you have the bowl held and you're doing the running around the top of it like this to get it to make the noise, once you get the initial hang of making it sing like this, okay, what you can do is to help prevent that chitter is you can put a little bit of counterforce onto the inviter from the bowl side. So you have the force coming in, from the inviter into the bowl, right, to get it to sing. And then what you can do is, and this takes some time, do not jump into this, but you can start to feel it out a little bit, and you can start to, as like this inviter's coming this way, I can kind of push a little bit of force from the hand that's holding the bowl into the inviter as I'm pushing the inviter into the bowl and down into the center of the bowl. But that takes a little bit of time to get a feel for. And if you do it too hard, you're going to get the chitter. But it is a good practice to do that. Okay. So that is 30 minutes of setting up, considering playing your bowls, and a little bit of a how-to on striking them and combining them to make some sounds. I think that is a long enough video for this, given the introduction and all that. So we will go ahead and cut that here now. I hope this video was informative. I hope it answered a lot of the questions that you might have about singing bowls. And if I missed anything, do let me know in the comments. If you like the content that you're seeing on this channel, do like this content you like and consider subscribing. It would really help me out, and I greatly appreciate it. Until next time, stay shiny. Namaste.